Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Anyreach Roundtable, where we sit down with founders, builders, and innovators about how AI is going to impact our work. I'm your host, Richard Lin, CEO of Anyreach, and today I'm joined with Kevin Wu, the founder of Leaping AI, a full stack AI voice platform to help businesses of any size scale up their call operations. Kevin, it's great to have you here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining. So just as a quick background about who you are, your experience, your journey, can you share just a little bit about that so our audience can get to know you a little bit better?
Yeah, so I'm Kevin, the CEO of Leaping AI. At Leaping AI, we make self-improving voice AI agents for businesses. We currently crossed 100,000 calls and per day, and in some cases are able to automate up to 70% of repetitive customer support use cases, whilst maintaining 90% customer satisfaction. There are three use cases we specialize in, and happy to dive into them later on. The first one is customer service over the phone. The second one is more efficient lead qualification, and the third one is actually business operations. So one car subscription platform uses us to call workshops and ask about the repair status of their car fleet in an automated fashion with voice AI. About myself, I am Canadian, but I moved to Germany when I was very young, and I grew up in Germany. I studied computer science and did my first startup while I was 19. Dropped out of school. That didn't go anywhere, but caught the entrepreneurial bug. And after studying, I actually went into consulting. So I worked at the Boston Consulting Group for 3 years before doing this company, and now I'm kind of based mostly in the US, but also in Germany still.
Got it, got it. Well, thanks for sharing that. And so you've had quite an amazing journey from working at the big three in consulting to, obviously starting your own company. What made you kind of jump into the space of saying, I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life in voice AI?
Yeah, so it's actually I've always had the entrepreneurial bug. So I studied AI in university, and whilst there, I actually worked at Amazon for a summer. And one of the things they make you do is go to a warehouse for a day, but also go to a call center and try to understand the level of service quality that Amazon tries to uphold when talking to their customers. And whilst there, I noticed that a lot of these calls are pretty repetitive, but also that the call center job per se is not the most glamorous job. And so that plus when I was at BCG, we're actually working on a couple of projects trying to what they call automate or streamline the shared service center, which is a nice word for most of the times like the call center. And so those top-down experiences were one aspect. The second aspect was I was actually connected at the beginning of 2023 to one of our customers now who has this large call center and who asked me if I can do something about it. And so the idea evolved from really wanting to help that one person with AI, and now it's obviously now been something much larger than that.
Got it, got it. It's interesting that you mentioned Amazon because Karthik, my co-founder, is also from Amazon, funny enough, but
Yeah.
he has his own stories there. And yeah, the aspect of jumping into customer service calls, regardless of what your role is. I think I heard a story where Jeff Bezos was doing customer support calls for quite some time while he was still at Amazon. Probably not so much anymore, considering he's having his wedding with celebrities now. um,
Yeah.
but as you kind of think about the evolution of AI and how customers have been interacting with it, started on chatbots, but voice still kind of remains elusive, at least in the frontier of AI. What do you think has been holding back companies from essentially fully automating calls, and how is Leaping overcoming these barriers?
Yeah. So I would say that the main problem with voice AI is that it's most of the times not fully as good as humans yet. So
Mm,
this was clear to me when I actually visited a call center 2 weeks ago with one of our customers, and they were selling wine, and There are several qualities to a call that essentially kind of you would want to have like really good service level quality. The first one is, to be honest, the EQ to be able
Mm.
to really give customers a good experience. So, for example, if the customers say, "Hey, I want to order something for vacation," right? You might actually want to spend 20 seconds talking about the vacation, like, "Nice, where are you going?" Right? "Oh, I've been there," just to build up that rapport. And the second one is also just conversation dynamics. So a chatbot is turn-based. Like you talk, I talk, you talk, I talk. But in a call center, you might actually want to have a more fluid conversation. And I think the voice AI space is going there, but it's not fully there yet, right? And it cannot yet fully replace a human, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So how I view voice AI is more of an enabler that works with humans and makes the overall construct more efficient by
Mm.
automating the more repetitive part. But in terms of full automation, I don't see it yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you bring up a good point. This is something we're seeing as well, where the nuances of the human experience when it comes to conversations. It's not as straightforward as you mentioned with the chatbot, which is more linear, right? Like turn taking is very clear, but in a phone call that, as you mentioned, can be very fluid, or it can branch out to multiple different kind of topics. And there's things like, as you mentioned, emotional intelligence, the ability to be brief in how you respond, right? Depending on the use case, maybe something for like customer service, you can be a little bit more passive, empathetic, listen to the end caller. But when it comes to sales, sometimes you got to be a little bit more aggressive, right? And say, hey,
Yeah.
we got to get you back to the call to
And I
action.
would like to expand on that because it can be both something you want and something you not want, that flexibility in the conversation. So a big shift we've seen in conversational AI is the move from, fixed responses to fixed things that the user is saying, to kind of the LLM approach where you generate the response and it's more freestyle and it's more flexible. And on the one hand, you actually want that flexibility because when customers calling in, they're not expecting a chatbot style conversation. They're um, expecting a conversation like they would have with their significant others, right, or with their friends, especially if excellent customer service is something that the brand prides itself on. So you want essentially to have some flexibility. But then on the flip side, the brand doesn't want the AI to hallucinate, right, and make something up that could harm it later on. So it's essentially an interesting problem of how you design the voice AI agent, where on the one hand you want it to sometimes veer off from the script, because if it doesn't veer off from the script, then you have to think about each and every single possible edge case that might happen, right? But if you want it to veer off from the script, that's also dangerous because it might veer off in a way that you don't want it to. And so
Right.
this is something that I'm thinking about a lot. I'm not sure I have solved it fully, but it's an interesting problem that I think differentiates it from a chatbot, because a chatbot is essentially a new medium of communication that the brands previously did not have with their customers, right? I mean, customers are used to either calling or sending email, and chatbot is kind of a new modality where everyone knows that it's kind of a chatbot, right? And okay, there's a certain way I can interact with it. But for a voice call, you're essentially replacing something that already existed, that had a certain level of quality. So being
Mm.
able to mirror that and get as close as possible to that is something very hard, to be honest, but like very necessary because you're essentially replacing something, and that already had a certain level of quality that customers were used to.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, when you think about something like a chatbot, as you mentioned, it's a new modality where expectations really haven't been set yet. But if you're automating a phone call with AI, they already have preconceived kind of like biases of like what a phone call should be like. And so you have to really kind of design around those constraints and understand that there is all that nuance that comes with those existing biases. So one of the things you mentioned is like automating, kind of the more tedious type of conversations on a call. I think you mentioned roughly 70% calls end to end. Pretty huge number. Can you kind of walk us through what kind of calls you're currently handling and, those businesses that you're helping automate?
Yeah, I would say there are three types of calls. So the first one is classical customer support.
Mm.
So we're working with one of the largest wine merchants in Europe, plus one of the largest travel companies in the world that essentially get customer calls like, hey, I want to, know the status of my booking or my order. Hey, I want to cancel something. Hey, I want to book something in addition. And depending on the use case, we are solving up to 70%. And essentially the value or the pain point that we solve is excellent customer service 24/7, right? But also
Mm.
streamlined and cheaper than just with humans, ideally. The second use case is actually lead qualification. So we're working with several large Medicare call centers. It's a very big niche that operate Facebook ads, and then customers would call into their call center. And so
Mm.
the ability of Voice AI to take those calls 24/7, pre-qualify those customers, ask a lot of the repetitive script flow that you
Mm.
currently have, like what's your name, what's your security number, right? Like what's your address? Like Voice AI can do that before handing it over to a qualified kind of agent. And that we see also not only in Medicare but also in other verticals like credit card debt relief, or also selling like other types of insurances, even selling solar panels, right? So
Mm.
anything where you bring in leads either through your comparison portal or through like some kind of ad, and you want to further qualify them to either hand them over to your internal call center or resell those leads, but in a high quality, is something where Voice AI is really good. And the third one is what I mentioned earlier, product operations, where you can actually use Voice AI to call essentially, let's say, workshops, right? If you're a car business and inquire about the status of your fleet.
Mm. A little funny story. You mentioned solar panels. I don't know if you know. I actually used to sell solar panels back in
Really?
high school. Yeah, I used to do door-to-door sales. It's probably
Wow.
one of the toughest sales jobs I've ever had. I was on a bike and had
Yeah.
like this, neighborhood that I had to go down and just knock on doors, and it was a pretty interesting experience. I mean, I learned a lot. They had a very detailed script of what to follow. Build rapport when you first meet them. Don't just go for the sell, right? And then like, here's a process. Look at their electrical, box on the side of their house to see if they actually qualify, and so on and so forth. Would never do it again, but it was definitely a little bit of a jumping point to
Yeah,
get into
but
what I
I
want
would
to do.
say a lot of the script is actually repetitive stuff.
Right,
So
right.
instead of building the report, which you also do, you also try to find things like, hey, is like, are you living in a house, right? Over the phone, like
Mm.
how big is your roof? Like, is there even potential to like install a solar panel?
Right, right, exactly. And you mentioned one thing about kind of the enabler that AI can be, right, for existing human agents. How does Leaping think about kind of the human loop process for, the automation and the handoff to, more human agents?
Yes, it's actually a really interesting point because in some ways, it's so first of all, taking a step back, it's really actually necessary to have the human loop, and this might
Mm.
sound a little bit depressing, but it's actually necessary. Why? Because Gen AI is not yet able to solve 100% of all use cases because it's not smart enough. And right now, if you're pitching Voice AI to any potential customer, they already fix 100% of their problems with humans, right?
Mm.
But it's just not efficient, right? Which is why they're considering voice AI in the first place. But then you're
Mm.
replacing humans with voice AI, and sometimes they're not smart enough to solve 100% of the problem.
Mm.
Now you end up with 30, 40, 50% of the problem, which is not solved, right? Which is not
Mm.
good. So essentially, you need to involve the human, maybe always, maybe sometimes, right, to solve 100% of the problem. And
Mm.
what we do is we, send the phone call to the human, right? But obviously, ideally, Leaping AI has already provided value in between, like
Mm.
done a lot of the workflows, and so we send a call summary as well, and the main insights via webhook call separately. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, no, I mean, I think you bring up an interesting point. Like with human agents, it's like, close to 100% accuracy, but it's not efficient, right? And then on the flip side, you have AI agents that are highly efficient, but not 100% accurate. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a balancing act where both, parties have to kind of play nice with each other. One of the things that Leaping talks about in terms of your value prop is the ease of implementation. And we know it's not just having a voice agent that can speak on things, but also take action. How does that look like for Leaping's kind of product experience, and what are you kind of seeing in the market for folks asking for this kind of
Yeah,
integration?
so actually what we do is we provide a no-code platform that allows you to design voice AI agents really easily using drag and drop and using plain language. But for every larger customer, we also offer like implementation specialists on our side that are very experienced in setting up our voice AI agents, connecting the telephony, thinking about the webhooks, also designing the scripts that will help our clients in setting up a successful agent.
Got it. And as we talk about kind of like those enterprise, more custom integrations, I'm sure you've come across some of the more problematic ones. I won't list them because maybe we want to partner with them at some point. But what are some of the like most challenging integrations you've come across with deploying AI voice?
Yeah, I would say those where a webhook API is not readily available, right? So ideally, every read-write operation to a database, you have like a webhook. Where that is not available, that is a problem. Where it's like a really old system on the side of the client, and they don't really have an efficient way to look up information, that could also be a problem. Also, if everything is dependent on like one person inside the client organization who just happens to be focused on something else, that is also a problem. So what you need to have to ensure successful implementation is a clear understanding what kind of integrations you need, but then also the resources from the client side to help you to set up those integrations. Um, because at the end of the day, it's their system, right? I won't be able to somehow like hack into their system to set up an
Right.
integration. Like I need them to be available and help
Hey,
me.
guess what? We actually got the integration done last week. It's because we actually hacked your systems. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And so, one of the things that Leaving did very early was, obviously go through Y Combinator. How was your experience there, and how has that, helped shape how you think about Leaping and, its future roadmap?
Yeah, it was actually really life-changing. I mean, for me, YC was not only ever like related to leaping AI, it was kind of like a bigger concept. Like I'm 28, but even in high school, 11 years ago, I was consuming YC content, right? Like how to start a startup, reading PG
Mm,
essays, getting inspired by, Airbnb, Stripe founders. So to me, YC was always like a way bigger thing than just this leaping AI startup, to be honest. And so I was very happy to do it through Leaping AI and get the chance. I think we did the whole YC experience, with like not a virtual badge but an on-site badge. Our YC partner was Gary Tan himself, the president of YC, which was obviously very, very nice. I would say YC brought us forward in so many ways. In a way, it made us way more ambitious by bringing us to Silicon Valley and seeing the pace of Silicon Valley. Um, it also made it possible for us to get visas. So now both my co-founder and I are in the US on O1 visas, which is possible if you're not doing YC, but it's just, to be honest, it's not that easy, right? YC makes it easier with funding, with the network, with like the recommendation letters they provide to you. I would say the third thing is it makes doing a startup way more graspable. Like you see successful startups all start like from the bottom, right? And they didn't start like at the top. And all the startups you read about on TechCrunch, they're like in the same city facing the same problems as you might face right now, right? So it makes it a lot more tangible. At the end of the day, like you still have the same 1% chance of making a big startup like everyone else, but many of the people doing startups and maybe doing like YC and doing startups in general, it sounds, yeah, not that intuitive and maybe a little bit sad, but we don't necessarily do it to become rich or successful or have like life-changing money or somehow become famous. It's more like a sense of adventure, like the love for building and using technology to improve the world. And I think that is, yeah, something where I came from in Germany, it's not necessarily the case. And it's something that's actually pretty uplifting because what it also means
Mhm.
is that if you fail at this startup, you're not like the biggest loser as you're seen like when you do a startup in let's say Europe where I'm from and you fail because
Mhm.
it, like doing a startup is oftentimes tied to like the outcome, whereas in
Right.
Silicon Valley it's kind of the journey of building, right? So to me, honestly, I have the same respect and the same fun talking to a startup that is not going so well, but generating like so many learnings, right? It's still an interesting
Mhm.
conversation versus talking to a successful founder who somehow made it. Maybe like 50% was luck, right? It's
Mhm.
like the same level of respect, it's the same level of interesting conversation. And that is like a mindset that was new to me, right? And that I really appreciate about like YC and Silicon Valley in general.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great point. It's really about the journey, and it's not just another checkbox on your resume. And then the outcome of that is, as you mentioned, even if you fail, you still learn a lot from that experience. You've built
Yeah.
some great relationships, and it's not seen as a depressing or demoralizing experience at the end of it.
I mean, like
Yeah,
when I
no.
kind of like when I look back on my life, I mean,
Mhm.
I'm sounding like an 80-year-old now, but what I remember is not necessarily like specific discrete moments in time where
Yeah.
like I achieved something, like I got into a really great job, right? Or I got into
Mhm.
YC, because those are nice, but as maybe many of those people listening to like
Mhm.
anything nice, especially if you're like ambitious, the niceness effect lasts like for 3 hours, right? Then you're like
Right.
on
The
the
hamster
wheel.
wheel. You're just jumping right
Maybe
back
that's like
on.
the hedonic treadmill, but
Yeah.
like what I actually cherish, like looking back, are mostly like the journeys, right? Like of
Mhm.
what you did, maybe how you got there, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that for startups, especially knowing it's a 1% chance, I think at some point, let's say once I'm back to a job or I'm retired, I'm looking back more at the journey of building with like a group of people than necessarily what the outcome is, because essentially it's just a discrete event where the happiness probably lasts for like 2 hours, right? And then you like
Right. Right.
baseline yourself again, and then like you just again you have problems again. Like any
Yeah.
rich people, I mean I'm not that rich, but like any rich people will probably tell you that
Mm.
money obviously made them more comfortable, but like it didn't make them like the happiest person in the world, and
Right.
they still face problems on a daily basis, and it's not like all the problems are suddenly disappear.
Right. Now, I think I read this article. I think it was the Loom co-founder, or I forgot if that was the exact company. But when he sold his company, and I think they exited for like almost $1 billion. He wrote a whole article about like I have no purpose now, right? Because he was seeking that one event, and then now looking back, it's like it's really the journey and like relishing in that. That's where kind of the happiness comes from. So, switching gears a little bit, obviously being an AI native company, um, you and your team on the back end of operations are probably using a lot of different AI tools, for all types of day-to-day kind of workflows. Do you have any kind of maybe a short list of tools you use right now that you're like, yeah, this thing I can't live without it?
Actually, today I was just using deep research to do some market
Mm.
analysis. What else? I'm using ChatGPT a lot.
Mm.
Um,
Well, funny thing about deep research, how do you feel as, coming from a big three consulting firm and now using deep research? Do you feel like part of your job as a consultant is starting to go into AI?
Not really, because
Mm.
any type of consulting project has, like any type of consulting analysis has like so many different components, right? From the research
Mm.
to the thinking to the strategizing to like the
Mm.
analysis to the presentation.
Mm.
And maybe each activity in what I just described has like a 50% AI solution, but they're not as
Mm.
good as like a really smart consultant,
You
right?
won't finish the job, right? Yeah.
Like even deep research, if I put a human to it,
Mm.
for 8 hours, they can probably generate a better solution than deep research can. But deep research just does it in like 5 minutes, right? It's
Right.
more efficient for first time. So I see AI as like a powerful tool,
Mm.
but like I don't see it replacing
Completely
consultants.
replacing. Yeah. Makes sense. So outside of GPT, deep research, anything else that you're kind of playing around with that's getting you excited?
Nothing I can think of. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there is one tool which I use. I don't want to plug any vendors, but there is one tool where I am able to essentially search my LinkedIn network
Yeah.
and those of my connections using natural language instead of like keyword-based search if you use like LinkedIn Sales Navigator or something. And that is really helpful, right? Because sometimes you're looking for someone with some expertise, but that expertise is not like listed in their LinkedIn title, subject title,
Right.
right? But
Right.
they still have it. And so having some kind of semantic LinkedIn search where you can actually yeah, do like find people in a smarter way is something that's been really helpful for me to like try to ask, for example, my investors for specific intros.
Yeah. I'm surprised LinkedIn doesn't have this out of box. I mean, their search is
They
terrible.
that's like if I were a LinkedIn, that's
Yeah, if
probably
I was a LinkedIn PM, I'd be like, dude, what am I doing with my life?
I should invest in that, right?
You're
Yeah,
right, yeah.
yeah,
I think I don't know if this is the company you're talking about, like Happenstance, but that's actually what I use for like, finding
yeah.
my
It's
network.
happenstance. Yeah,
Yeah, okay, there you go. Well, there's a vendor, Happenstance CEO. If you want to be on the podcast, let me know. But anyways, so as you kind of think about the future of AI trends and evolution, especially around voice, what do you think is going to be happening in the next 35 years?
yeah. That's a big question. Honestly, I expect AI essentially to help you know have way more efficiency, replace way more workflows, but ideally also enable really nice products like self-driving, which like anyone in San Francisco knows is like super nice. Maybe also robotics, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had this little fun thought exercise with another e-commerce CEO that was on the podcast a couple weeks back. But we were stewing on the idea that every person is probably going to have their own AI. So you know how ChatGPT recently released the memory capabilities of all your chats, right? And it's able to understand you better. Then you would probably have like on a consumer basis, everybody's going to be born with a voice AI agent that's just going to follow you throughout life and just know all your context and be able to take action for you. That'd be kind of an exciting little future if you think about it.
Yeah.
A mini Jarvis, if you will, from Iron Man.
Yeah.
That comes with you when you're born. So. All right, awesome. Well, Kevin, thanks again for joining, the Anyreach Roundtable. I'm sure our audience are going to find your insights around AI voice, super important and helpful in their journey of understanding agentic AI, voice, and different other kind of modalities. Thank you again for coming here. But just as a quick note, if folks want to find you or Leaping, how can they find you?
Yes, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or we just actually launched our brand new website, www.leapingai.com.
Nice. All right, awesome. Well, for the audience, we will also have Kevin's links on our blog, so feel free to find it there. But Kevin, once again, thanks for joining Roundtable, and appreciate you being on.
Nice.
All right, thanks.